Okay.
Oh,
Okay, Kenny. All right, Kenny.
That was an accident.
All right, Kenny. All right, Kenny. All right, Kenny. Okay.
That was an accident.
All right, yeah, this means war.
That was an accident, man.
Get your butt out of here.
Oh, that was bad right there. That was bad.
This means war, Kenny. This means war, Kenny.
Wow. Talk about the end of an era. TNT will no longer air NBA games after the 2025 NBA season. At least that's what I heard from the news yesterday. This is Sports Guy Talking that you guys are watching and listening to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about the NBA being in major trouble with their own fan base. I say this because TNT lost their NBA media rights deal to NBC and Amazon. On paper, it could be problematic for most NBA fans since it is considered to be the better network compared to ESPN in terms of their NBA coverage. Before I say anything else, though, I want to present you guys with the topic question. So, here it is. Did losing TNT hurt the NBA in terms of their public image? I'm going to say yes to this question. I understand why the NBA moved off of TNT, but when you want to talk about public image between the NBA and its own fan base, yes, it absolutely hurts in terms of how their public image is portrayed, because obviously, what was the more popular network between ESPN and TNT? TNT. What did more people like to listen to in terms of the pregame, halftime, and postgame show? TNT, which is called Inside the NBA. It's one of the best pregame, halftime, and postgame shows in all sports, not just in basketball, but in all professional sports. You want to talk about football, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, you name it. Inside the NBA was absolutely the best show ever in terms of their pregame coverage, halftime coverage, and postgame coverage. I was always entertained listening to those guys, and they've got 4 guys that are phenomenal at their job. They've got Ernie Johnson, who's one of the best hosts that anybody could ever ask for. The guy knows how to absolutely have great chemistry with 3 other guys on the set, and obviously he's pretty entertaining on his own, but he also knows how to moderate the conversation between those guys while keeping the mood light for everybody else. And then, of course, they've got Charles Barkley, the great entertainer. He's always entertaining all the time. I love hearing Charles Barkley talk basketball. Now, do I take Charles Barkley seriously for educational purposes? Of course not. I look at Charles Barkley as an entertainer. He's supposed to entertain me. He's not necessarily here to inform me about the X's and O's of basketball, but listening to Charles Barkley, it's always golden comedy, and I always have a good laugh listening to Charles Barkley. He's one of my favorite NBA analysts out there. He's certainly a lot better than whatever garbage is presented on ESPN. Then you've got Shaq. He's absolutely great with his analysis, and he is always funny all the time. He makes me bust up laughing every time I'm listening to their pregame, halftime, and postgame show. Then you've got Kenny the Jet Smith, who's supposed to be the quote-unquote serious guy, but he always makes me bust up laughing. And quite frankly, they are all great entertainers. Look, of course, all of them are great on their own, but what makes it great for this show is that they all have undeniable chemistry with one another. It just seems like they understand each other so well, and that's why the comedy on Inside the NBA is freaking awesome, man. And I could watch that show all day and all night. In fact, you could probably say that it is the best pregame show in major professional sports. That's how good Inside the NBA is. And Ernie Johnson is pretty good on his own. The point that I'm trying to make is that those guys understood the casual fan, and they understood how to entertain casual fans into watching the NBA. Something that I can't say about ESPN, because we all know that the content that ESPN provides in terms of their NBA coverage is absolute trash. Why is it always trash all the time? Because it just seems like their knowledge of the game is extremely limited, and that's what happens when you focus on DEI initiatives. That's what happens when you focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion instead of hiring the best possible guys. And that's the great thing about TNT. Did they ever care about diversity, equity, and inclusion? Of course not. They cared about getting the best possible guys on set and trying to understand how to entertain fans. And obviously, Charles Barkley is a great entertainer. I'm always entertained whenever Charles Barkley has to speak. I'm always entertained when Shaq has to speak all the time. And I'm always entertained when Kenny the Jet Smith is giving his analysis of the NBA. I know that those guys are not necessarily the greatest in the world when it comes to X's and O's, but if you're not going to be able to do that, then at least be entertaining, which is what those 3 guys are. Obviously on ESPN, those guys, they just yell out hot takes all the time, and it just sounds like they're trying to go viral every single time, even though it's pretty clear they know nothing about the NBA whatsoever. I feel like diehard NBA fans care way more about the NBA, more so than actual analysts on ESPN. And speaking of ESPN, they are going to be able to keep the NBA, which is really a damn shame in and of itself, because nobody likes listening to ESPN whatsoever, not unless you like to listen to Stephen A. Smith, the guy that claimed that he made 17 straight threes in the game. Surely the New York Knicks could have used some of Stephen A. Smith's production in Game 7. But all jokes aside, though, we all know that the coverage of the NBA at ESPN is absolute garbage. I feel absolutely maddened and saddened that the NBA is going to continue airing games on ESPN while they're not going to air games on TNT. But it is what it is at this point. It's pretty clear that the NBA is a disaster in and of itself. I mean, the product on the NBA court is awesome. There is an all-time high in parity for the NBA, but the promotion of the NBA is absolutely trash. And why is that trash? It's because of Adam Silver. It's Adam Silver's fault for why the NBA hasn't taken a step forward in their marketability. It's pretty clear that it is disastrous right now in terms of the relationship between the players and the fans. What do I always say all the time on this channel? Adam Silver needs to create more rivalries in the National Basketball Association, but the only rivalry they seem interested in creating is between the players and the fans. How often is it that you see the players get pissed off at the fans? It seems like they're getting pissed off at the fans all the time, and the fans seem to be pissed off at the players all the time. And who can really blame the fans? I'm pissed off at the players too when they try to low manage all the time, and I blame LeBron James and Adam Silver for enabling the empowerment of load management. It's one of the worst things that's ever been created in the National Basketball Association. But I'm getting off topic here. I want to talk about how TNT is going to lose NBA media rights deal to NBC and Amazon. So obviously TNT, they're not going to be airing NBA games anymore after the 2025 NBA season. Now it's going to be airing on NBC and Amazon. Apparently, they're going to have a show called Basketball Night in America. I guess it's a rip-off name of Football Night in America. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not really the biggest fan of Football Night in America in terms of the NFL coverage for the pregame, halftime, and postgame show on NBC. I'm just not really entertained by it compared to the NFL Today for the NFL on CBS and Fox NFL Sunday for Fox. It's just, quite frankly, not that good whatsoever. The production there is mediocre at best. I honestly think it is because Maria Taylor is the host of Football Night in America. I'm not a fan of Maria Taylor whatsoever. She's absolutely terrible at her job, but we'll see how Basketball Night in America is. It's not going to be Ernie Johnson because Ernie Johnson is staying on TNT, so they're going to have to find somebody that is perfectly capable of that job. Do I have doubts that will happen, though? Of course I have doubts. They'll probably hire some unlikable woman for DEI initiatives, because that's what happens when you let these networks take charge, because they care more about diversity, equity, and inclusion, when quite frankly they should be focused on hiring the best possible candidates for said job. And when you focus on DEI all the time, you're going to get a mediocre product on the pregame, halftime, and postgame show. And that's one of the main reasons why I think a lot of people are angry that the NBA is not going to be airing games on TNT anymore. And I honestly can't blame TNT for cutting ties with the NBA, because TNT knows that the NBA is not a rising product anymore. It's more of a declining product. And TNT is like, we don't need the NBA. Why should we air games where people don't even really care about watching the NBA anymore? And the NBA is like, fine, we'll go ahead and make deals with ESPN, NBC, and Amazon. Now, Amazon is a streaming site. It seems like the NBA, they're going to try to focus more on the streaming atmosphere. I don't necessarily think it's a great idea. I know why they're doing it. I totally get the reason, but are they really going to increase their fan base if they're going to streaming channels? I'm not so sure about that, because the NBA is already declining in terms of television ratings. I don't necessarily think going to streaming websites is the way to go. I don't think airing playoff games on Amazon is a great way to go for the NBA. It's just disastrous between the fans and the commissioner. And quite frankly, I feel like Adam Silver does not understand the fans whatsoever. I always feel like Adam Silver has trouble relating to the casual fan, but now I'm starting to wonder if Adam Silver has trouble relating to the diehard fans, because the diehard fans want to see television games be played on cable. They don't necessarily want to see basketball games being played on streaming services and channels. And Adam Silver seems like he He hasn't quite frankly understood that. And you look at how NBA coverage on ESPN is absolute trash, but they didn't even remove ESPN from it. Again, I understand the reason why. There's money on the line and everything like that. And obviously ESPN has to overpay for NBA coverage while TNT doesn't, because TNT knows that if they lose the NBA, they'll be fine. They don't necessarily need the NBA to survive. But we all know that ESPN needs the NBA in order to survive on their network. If ESPN didn't have the NBA, they would cease to exist and they would be on pace to be defunct by 2030. But we all know that ESPN needs the NBA desperately. That's why the NBA isn't losing their games on ESPN. Instead, they're going to lose their games on TNT. It seems like they're going to air their games on NBC and Amazon. We'll see how it plays out. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but who knows? Maybe the coverage on NBC will be better than what it is on ESPN. I just feel bad for the TNT guys because we all know that the coverage on TNT is far superior to the one that is on ESPN. Quite frankly, the NBA coverage on ESPN is absolutely trash, and we all know that Inside the NBA is one of the best pregame, halftime, and postgame shows. If it is going to end, though, I'm going to certainly miss the crew of Ernie Johnson, Shaq, Charles Barkley, and Kenny the Jet Smith. It's been a great run for those guys. Those guys were always entertaining, and I truly enjoyed hearing their basketball analysis, or should I rather say their basketball comedy. It always made me laugh. It always made me feel like I had a good time watching the shows in general. It's certainly better than some of the NBA pregame shows that are out there on ESPN. So that is why losing TNT definitely hurt the NBA in terms of their public image. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That'll be for the @DustinNastran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram @DustinNastran and at Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter @DustinNastran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video. Comment down below. Check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel Sports Guy Talking.